guys, it's Olivia and welcome back to Live in Literature. Thank you so much for all the love and support I received my last video, and if you have not seen it yet, feel free to head over to my channel to check it out. Well guys, happy Halloween and welcome to November. We are in the month of November now. When I am filming this, it is not November, but welcome to it either way, regardless, whatever. We are now encroaching upon the holiday season. Still technically kind of fallish, but more entering into those wintry vibes. And I can't wait to be doing some of those fun videos for you. Now, today's video is one that I have been really excited to talk about. And I got the idea from my mom, actually. And also from Book Talk, obviously. Because, hello, Book Talk is the culmination of everything that we do in this industry as booktubers, as book people. And that is, I wanted to discuss today, as you've seen with the title of today's video, morally gray versus morally black main male characters. Okay, morally gray versus morally black. Now, this is a topic that's come up recently in the book talk world of what classifies a man as morally gray and or morally black in our book department. Now, if you don't know the difference, there is one. At least I believe there is one. Again, this video is going to be very similar to my fantasy romantasy versus fantasy romance video. This is my own delineation that I am making. If you disagree with it, that's fine. If you agree, awesome, because you're on the same track as me. Personally, for me, I think there is a huge difference between morally gray versus morally black characters. And in this video, I'm going to give you some distinct reasons and ways of how to differentiate between the two, and my ways that I differentiate between who I consider morally gray versus morally black, and what those fine lines are that you're crossing. And I will also say that either way, it doesn't really matter. Whatever you like, you like. For instance, I would say that every book I'm going to recommend to you guys today, I like all of these characters. I like all of them. I enjoy all of them. I don't care if they're morally gray or morally black, but maybe for the people who want something a little bit darker or even more edgy than morally gray, we're going to enter morally black.
Last night you were unhinged. You were like some desperate howling demon. Do it again.
So, starting off with a quick little reasoning. Morally gray. Obviously, morally gray main male characters are nothing new to the book genre. They have been around since the dawn of time. A famous example, I would say, is any of the, Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. You have Mr. Rochester, I think is a great morally gray main male character. Somebody of that same era by another Bronte sister of Wuthering Heights, we have Heathcliff, who would I consider morally black, the true anti-hero of that story. He's both someone you want to root for and root against, but I would say that the rooting against is stronger than you're rooting for. Whereas someone who's morally gray, like Mr. Rochester in Jane Eyre, is somebody that you are actively rooting for because his morality is in the right place.
It's you, you rare unearthly thing. Poor and obscure as you are, please accept me as your husband.
So my differentiation between the two is essentially morally gray main male characters specifically. I believe, yes, they will pose and they will preen as calculated, smart, witty, but also that chart that a lot of people do where it's looks like they could kill you, would kill you. But morally gray characters, in my opinion, are looks like they could kill you is a cinnamon roll, actually. Whereas morally gray are looks like they could kill you, will kill you. Morally gray to me is their morality and their underlying code of who they are as a person, what they represent, and what their motive is. Morally, it is in a good direction. It is in a positive direction. It is in a direction of essentially true morals of let's say in today's world and or society. They're pushing for good things, they want good things, but they might do bad things to get it. Okay, staying with me?
Mr. Krabs, I am so confused.
Whereas morally black, I feel not their morals aren't always in the right, quote unquote, the right direction. Because obviously with the book world, morality is relative. And so you might judge someone else's morality differently than someone else's. Obviously in a fantasy world, things are off limits. It's kind of how I'm always saying guys who are murderers are hot. Obviously in real life, no, that's not true.
What? What do you mean you're not lucky? You lied to me?
In the book world, if they kill thousands of people, or they're like you touch her and you die vibes, that's so hot. I live for that. Morality wise, that's in a great direction for me. I'm living for that. But morally black, in my opinion, is more of like, they do bad things, but they do them for maybe more of a like selfish reason. And I kind of take selfishness as in like, it is their own prerogative, their own selfishness, and it's not, they don't really care about a moral compass. Whereas someone who's morally gray might care more about the moral compass of what they are doing, even if they do bad things, but there's like an intention behind it. I feel like with morally black, the intention was destructive, even if the path changes a little bit. And I'm saying that like, obviously morally gray and morally black main male characters can shift in and out maybe through the cycles, but I think there's a clear delineation between like between black and gray. Like, I think that they're just like, is a little bit more of a delineation than we're like giving credit for. I'm hoping that like my explanation made sense. This is like a really interesting topic, at least in my opinion, because I feel like we're entering a world where like we're starting to see morally black characters come in more often. I think it spices things up. I think it makes things way more interesting. But I also think that like it just changes the game a little bit on like, where do your, like, more does your morality lie? Where do you want to see it? Like, where is the selfishness aspect of these male characters, and like what is their intention when they are acting like and doing these bad things, but maybe for a good reason, or maybe for not so good of a reason. We will find out. So I have picked out a couple of books with some of my favorite male characters that I'm going to show like one hand and then the other of like morally gray versus morally black, and kind of show the differentiation between the two, and hopefully it'll make sense like by the end of this video. So let's get started. Also, just want to throw it in here, there could potentially be spoilers for the books that I'm going to be talking about today. If you do not want to be spoiled, please skip over the section. I'm going to try to avoid spoilering things as much as I possibly can. I don't think it's going to be like major spoilers. It's just going to be more of like character-based, like personality-based, like talking about their personality type things. But again, like just wanted to give you guys a heads up, like just be warned, there could be spoilers.
You have been warned.
Okay, to start off, we're going to start off with a classic. It'll be round one. Morally gray versus morally black. We've got Rhysand versus Kingfisher. Now, in my opinion, I think Rhysand is the perfect example of a morally gray character. Is he daddy? Yes.
You whore. You're a whore.
Do I want to marry him? Yes. Is he my husband, the father of my children? Yes. But also, so is Cassian. But anyways, we're not talking about Cassian right now. We're talking about my beloved Rhysand. I think Rhysand from A Court of Mist and Fury is an excellent example of a morally gray character. Because, again, his intention, like from the beginning, is to do good things. But nobody knows. Everyone thinks that he's this monster, that he's this like power-hungry high lord who's trying to like ruin everybody's lives. That he lives in this decrepit, like creepy, like sinister, dark city. But again, it's all under the guise of a good thing. He's actually just protecting his people. And like once Feyre gets to know him on that level, obviously things like for them, like obviously like the love blooms and it blossoms because there's honesty between them, there's vulnerability. And again, I feel like Rhysand's morals are in a good direction, even though he does bad things. Even though he does things that could be questionable to other people, anyone who knows him and he knows himself knows that he's making good decisions and he's doing them for the benefit of other people. Whereas we've got Kingfisher and Quicksilver. Now, Kingfisher, in my opinion, and some people might disagree with this, but personally for me, I think he reads a little bit more morally black. I think as the series goes on with Callie Hart, like he could shift more to morally gray. But in my opinion, I feel like there's this seed of selfishness with Kingfisher. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's there. It feels real. It feels raw. But in this book, when Kingfisher is essentially like coercing Cerys to like do his bidding, yes, technically it is for a good reason, like an underlying, but again, I feel like there's like a seed of selfishness to him where like he is so like single pointed derived to completing his goal. He does not care if he hurts anyone in the process. He does not care if he's like poorly managing things. He only cares about the task at hand. And I feel like there's a little bit of like a selfish seed there. I do think this one is like kind of like a bordering. This one could border towards morally gray. But I think that Kingfisher has this like energy and this darkness about him. And I feel like it's because he's been so corrupted by what's happened to him. And like obviously as you read the book, like you've come to find this out. But I think that like, again, there is more of like selfish desires and coercion going on in this book than in this book, where I feel like the moral compass is a little bit more like strong and steady in this one, but again, questionable things he's doing. Whereas the motives in this one are a little bit more questionable. The compass is steering in and out. But again, like, things still end up on the right side. But I think these two are a great example of morally gray versus morally black. The next two up on the chopping block, round two. We've got morally gray Grimshaw, and we've got morally black Holland. This one's from Nightbane. This is A Conjuring of Light, from the third book in the V.E. Schwab's A Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. Now, start with Grimshaw. Listen, it was obvious from the jump that Grimshaw had other things going on. I do think that people maybe think that he runs a little bit more morally black, but in my opinion, this man has clear motives, and his motives are for good things. He is trying to do a good thing, and everyone else is doubting him because they don't know him. But as the things unfold, we see more of his true character and why he's doing the things that he does. And for that reason, I think he reads morally gray to me. Whereas we have Holland in A Conjuring of Light. Now, Holland has always been like kind of the anti-hero character in this series. But once he tries to take over, because Holland's whole thing is that he wanted to be powerful. He wanted to become the biggest thing in the whole sky. His motives were for power. His motives were to be a power hungry, like, king, essentially. He wanted to come to power, and he wanted to, like, essentially, like, he was sick of living in squalor in his, like, in his London. If you've read this book, you know that there are like 4 separate Londons, and he lives in one of them. And in the white London that he lives in, it's essentially a city that's like dying, and he's sick of it. He doesn't want to live this way anymore. And so Holland takes things into his own hands, and like, who cares what happens to anybody else? All he cares about is getting what he wants, which is power. Power is his main drive. It's his main motivation. Now, however, in this book, there is a shift to joining forces with, quote unquote, the good guys. But again, it's after his plans were unfortunately like blown apart. So again, showing the differences, Grimshaw, again, questionable actions, but motives are for a good reason. My gosh. A Conjuring of Light, Holland, his motives are for power and for like for essentially leadership, but his actions also questionable in that regard as well. So kind of showing the difference. Hopefully you're getting it. Hopefully it's making sense. Maybe. Round three. Let's do the vampires. We've got from Serpents in the Wings of Night, Rain. From the Tirjis Girma's Immortal Dark, we've got Ceno Sagad. Starting with Rain. Oh, Rain is daddy. I love him so much. I love Rain.
No, I'm a horologist.
So was my mum, but she didn't crow about it as loud as you.
Rain is an excellent example of a morally great character. Again, enters a competition to essentially join forces. He is doing it for a good reason. His reasoning is that he wants to bring his people out of squalor, and he wants to like lead them, but also he falls in love along the way, and he wants to protect Araya, and he's doing it all with good motivation. Like, his motivation is pure, his motivation is good, but again, he's obviously killing people, he's doing questionable things on the battlefield. Like, it's definitely scary, there's scary moments, but like, there's trust there. There's trust that you can see. There's a lack of unselfishness with this man. Whereas Ceno Sagad in The Immortal Dark, this man I absolutely 1000% think reads morally black. Ceno Sagad has one motivation, and that is to get Kaden out of his house. He wants her gone. He wants to, essentially, like, something has been taken from him. His only motivation in this book, for the most part, is getting Kaden out of this house so that he can figure out how to get what was stolen back to him. He cares more about that thing than anything else. And I don't want to say what it is because that's a huge spoiler of the book of what the thing is that he lost. The house has taken something from him, and he wants it back more than anything. He will literally do anything that it takes. When I say that this man is knives to throat scary, this man will rip your throat out. He will cause you harm. He will do horrible, absolutely so questionable things to get what he wants. And yet you can't help but the slightest part of you rooting for him because you're kind of in love with him. But you're also like, wow, this man is terrifying.
I'm both frightened and aroused.
I think this vampire might be one of the scariest vampires I've ever had to read about. Like, he truly will go to any lengths to get what he wants. And I think almost every character in this book is morally black. Like, I think nobody has good morals in this book, but that's why I love it. So again, we've got the gorgeous Rain with great desires and good responsibility, but again, questionable actions. And then we've got the dark and mysterious Ceno Sagad, whose only motivation is to get back what was stolen from him, and he will go to any lengths necessary to get it back. Next, we have on the chopping block, round four. Fourth Wings, Zaden Rhysand, and a new book that I just finished reading that I absolutely adored, A.C. Hobbs' Scythe and Pen. This one's about a man named Hades Cronis. Let's start with Zaden. Zaden is absolutely morally gray. He definitely rides in that zone. His intentions are good. He has things that he wants to accomplish. It is all about saving his kingdom for him. It is all about protecting those that he loves. It is all about, people always say like, oh my gosh, he's always keeping secrets. He's always keeping secrets. Like, he doesn't tell Violet anything. For good reason. He is protecting people. People think he's such like the worst secret keeper ever. Honestly, I would have just left him alone at this point. I'd been like, you're keeping your secrets for a good reason, sir. And I trust you. And I trust you. And there's some trust there that we're finally like starting to see a little bit more of. But again, he does things that are questionable, but for like a very, very good reason. And like a reason and a reason that is very like makes sense, is sound. You can see it playing out. You're like, yes, this absolutely makes sense. Whereas we've got Hades Cronis in Scythe and Pen. Now this, to give you a quick plot summary, because this is a brand new book that I just read this year. This one is vampires meets the 1920s, and it's a political, it's kind of a political book and a murder mystery. Essentially, in it's the city of London in the 1920s. So it's like very like fun and flapper times. Essentially, Demetrius Rask and his father's like the senator over this area of London. They're trying to pass a bill that gives vampires and humans like equal rights, because right now vampires don't have equal rights to humans, and they're literally about to pass this bill. But when there's these vampire murders that start happening, and like when I say vampire murders, I mean humans are getting killed by vampires. And so then the whole public starts freaking out. Demetrius is definitely our morally gray person in this book. Demetrius is the one who seeks out Hades Cronis. Hades Cronis in this book is essentially a mobster, a gangster, a tyrant. He runs over the east side of this sector of the city, and he runs it through his company, is what he calls the company. Hades Cronis' morals, you don't know them. You can't see them. You don't know what he's really thinking. You think that you do, but maybe you don't. And you don't quite know if you can trust him while you're reading the entire thing. Whereas Demetrius is like a reliable, morally gray person. He's doing something bad, but for a good reason. Whereas Hades Cronis, you're like, what's the motivation? Why are you doing this? Like, what are you after? And at the end of the day, I think it's vengeance and revenge. He's after revenge. That is the driving force within him, is revenge, is seeking revenge on someone who's wronged him. And for me, that reads morally black. That is something that is dark, that is twisted, that is the only driving force for what he does is morally black. And you can kind of see the difference between the two when you read this book, between Demetrius and Hades Cronis. I absolutely love this book. I think it was fabulous. And I think it's a really interesting take on vampires and the whole concept of vampires. So again, morally gray Zaden with maybe is a secret keeper and doesn't tell the truth all the time, but is doing it for good reason. And then we've got very mobster scary, will do anything to anyone to get what he wants, Hades Cronis, without caring about what happens to anyone else, who else is in the fallout, doesn't matter, and he doesn't care because he's Hades Cronis and he's morally black. So that is all the book recommendations I have for you guys today. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Live in Literature YouTube channel. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and my controversial take maybe on morally gray versus morally black. Hopefully it made sense to you. If not, I'm happy to explain it more in the comments below. Please ask your questions. Please, if you want any more recommendations, please feel free to ask below in the comments. And I love you guys the most, and I'm so grateful for you. Thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.